Every video and episode of the It's Cavalier podcast is made possible by my supporters over on Patreon. If you enjoy the show here today, consider signing up. You'll get early access, exclusive videos, podcasts, member shoutouts, and more. And as always, thank you for watching.
What's up, Cavs fans? It's your boy Zoe. Excited to be here and can't wait to get started.
I just love to play basketball, so I just really want to get into the arena and just put a show on for the fans and, win as many games as possible and hopefully the year's long. Just a huge blessing just to be able to play at all, and then let alone for this organization. I couldn't ask for nothing better than this. I think it's a great situation for my play style, and I'm just looking forward to just getting out there and competing with the guys. I just think that, Don is obviously, one of the best players they have in the league, and then they have two bigs that are mobile that can, set pick and rolls and get to the rim like that. And then I feel like we can do some switching on defense. So I think we can, do a lot of different things on both sides of the ball, and I think to have the option to be able to do those things is great.
That, my friends, was one of the newest Cavaliers, Lonzo Ball. Man, you guys just don't know how happy I am to see this dude suiting up in the wine and gold. I know he hasn't even actually really put on the jersey yet. He's just talking at a media availability session, but he's saying a lot of the right things. He seems like he's coming in and just willing to do whatever it takes to be impactful for this basketball team and contribute in whatever ways that lead to winning. And honestly, above all else, it sounds like he's genuinely just happy to be on a basketball court. We know after everything that Lonzo Ball has been through, let me tell you, this right here just it makes you feel good, because I don't think anybody entered this offseason feeling as if Lonzo Ball, I talked about it a lot and I made a lot of references to it in videos and whatnot, but even myself, I didn't seriously think that Lonzo Ball would be a real option for the Cavaliers. And he is. All right. He is now a Cleveland Cavalier at the expense of Isaac Okoro. I'm wishing Isaac Okoro the best, by the way. I still believe that there's some untapped potential there. Maybe he'll be able to find it in Chicago. But I'm happy to have Lonzo, and I think he is happy to be here. But, man, I'm in a place right now because we're seeing so many different rumors swirling around, and you guys know what I'm talking about. We'll start with the big one, right? LeBron. It's all anybody's talking about. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time discussing it, because I honestly feel like the chances feel pretty damn minimal to me. And in terms of how the Cavaliers would have to execute said trade and aggregate and whatnot and make sure that they're below the apron by post trade and whatnot, I just don't think, for the potential cost that it would take, I just don't think it is likely to occur. Is it possible? Yeah, I suppose. But if you're expecting the Cavaliers to trade for LeBron, I just don't think that is very, very likely. Don't get your hopes up. The scenario in which I could believe that would be way more likely is a buyout. LeBron opted into a season with the Lakers. He was not going to leave all that money on the table. That is the reason for that, right? Because if he would have accepted the buyout, to me, the only indication there would be, okay, this man is willing to he is willing to forego another season. He is going to retire after the 2025-26 season. That would be the only scenario in which I see LeBron taking the buyout. Why? Because if the Cavaliers trade for LeBron, they acquire a form of his bird rights, and they can offer him additional salary at that point in time. But I just don't think, I'm not getting to the point right now where I'm even going to think this is a remote possibility. This is way, way different than 2014, where there was some strange feelings going on right there around that time frame with the team making moves to clear salary spots to get LeBron, like to clear and make some real moves. And we all know how that ended up. And, them trading for Kevin Love and whatnot, moving Andrew Wiggins and Anthony Bennett and company. But this is a completely different feeling than the 2014 return. I do not see LeBron coming to Cleveland on any other scenario than a buyout. And if he did, and if he was bought out by the Lakers, I think that would only indicate that he is probably getting ready to hang them up. That would be the only scenario in which I could see that happening, because I just like when you look at it on paper, if you're trading, I don't know, let's say Darius Garland and Jarrett Allen, and you're trying to match salaries and whatnot, the Cavaliers on paper are going to look a lot different, quite honestly. And there are pros and cons with a move like that. Obviously, if you're bringing LeBron in, one of the biggest things that you would have to be concerned with on the court would not only be chemistry. I think that is definitely something that's right up there, but the touches, the development of Evan Mobley. What was one of the biggest things that occurred when the Cavaliers acquired Donovan Mitchell was this talk about expedited timelines of development for players like Darius Garland and most notably Evan Mobley himself. If you're bringing LeBron into town, a player who is notoriously ball dominant, and he has gotten better off ball, especially as a shooter over the last couple of seasons in LA, and he's kind of had to with some of the players that they've had over there, especially after trading for Luka this past season. But I think that on the court, that is a real question mark. Does that potential move stymie Evan Mobley's development? Would it be good for Evan Mobley's development? I think that is one of the question marks that I would have in his return, but it's not necessarily something I'd say no to. I just think that if you're talking about LeBron being traded for, I just think that is not necessarily something that is even remotely a possibility. I don't think the Cavaliers would want to do that, because not only do you really speed up the potential rebuild that you would likely have to occur after LeBron leaves, but you don't have nearly the amount of assets available to you to do that, because LeBron will have likely retired and you have already traded Darius Garland, presumably, and Jarrett Allen, two of the bigger trade chips on your team. So your ability to pivot into a quicker rebuild and center it around Evan Mobley becomes a lot more difficult. So for the Cavaliers to go out and try and opt for the trade route, it just doesn't make a ton of sense. It does not make a ton of sense. You may free up additional salary by doing that, but this is not really been a real big free agent destination. The Cavaliers have had to develop in-house talent, and they have had to trade for high-level salaries. I mean, there have just not been a lot of big name or high-profile free agents that have willingly signed in Cleveland, no matter the amounts of money that can be offered. So to me, to improve the team, if you're going to build around Evan Mobley, you are much more likely to do that either via trade or in-house development. You're not likely to get a big or high-profile, high-caliber talent brought to the city of Cleveland just because you have the money to do so. They've been around this block. It has happened time and time again, which is why I don't think I would even want to approach the trade scenarios when it comes to LeBron. If he truly wants to be in Cleveland and the Cavaliers truly want him to be there, it would likely have to be a buyout, in my opinion. That's just me. You guys have your own opinions. I understand that. But to me, the only scenario in which I would be okay with this type of thing is if it came via a buyout. But again, that will likely signal, at least in my opinion, that LeBron is getting close to the end, that he's ready to hang him up. Those are the trade-offs. That's all that I'm saying. So am I saying I wouldn't like to see LeBron back in Cleveland? Hell no, it's not necessarily anything. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is I think it makes a lot more sense if you are the Cavaliers, if you are interested in LeBron returning, it would have to be via the buyout, and you would not want to trade pieces out for what would essentially amount to maybe a 1 to 2 year rental of LeBron at the most. At the least, you're getting a year of LeBron for Darius and Jarrett or whoever else that you would want to try and aggregate salary for. So it's just there's a lot there to consider, obviously, in terms of not only the salary aspect, but from the asset standpoint. I just don't think that I would be willing to part with two of the bigger trade pieces on the roster for 1 year, likely, of Braun, right? I just don't see that being viable option for the Cavaliers, because you really rob yourself of a lot of possible pivot points if you need to, if it doesn't work out in that one singular year. And look, I get it. The East is open as hell right now. This might be the Cavaliers' best opportunity to win a title this upcoming season, when you got Boston going through what they're going through with Jason Tatum, when you have Milwaukee kind of restructuring things and going to have a much different look this upcoming season, with Indiana and the Tyrese Halliburton injury. And there's just so much uncertainty in the Eastern Conference in general. I just don't know if I would feel comfortable enough moving Darius, Garland, and whoever else for maybe one season of LeBron, just for that one singular shot. I just don't think that would be a great idea. But I digress. You guys, you have your own opinions. I completely understand that. I'd love to know how you feel in the comments below. Would you like to see LeBron return to the Cavaliers if it meant trading some of the bigger assets on this team? And I think we could probably all agree that Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley would probably be off limits in any talks regarding any potential LeBron return. It would those two are probably off the table. But if you get LeBron on a buyout, that's literally, that would be perfect storybook ending. It would be awesome to see, and a true and real opportunity, probably the best that LeBron has had since he left Cleveland, to actually win championship number 5 and potentially get a lot of these players first rings, right? And there is another name right now that is also out there that could potentially return to Cleveland, and it would make a lot more sense, at least in terms of what it would cost you, than LeBron, and that's Kevin Love, who we'll get to in a minute. But yeah, I think, as Dr. Claw is saying down here, the only way that I would feel confident or feel good about this is LeBron returning on a buyout. I just don't see the reason, or I don't see the mentality changing among the brass and their belief in the core four that they would be willing to pull the trigger on a potential LeBron trade by shipping out 2 of their core 4 members who will likely cost you. And again, it's not set in stone necessarily that LeBron will play 1 more year, but essentially, if he's accepting a buyout from LA and you don't have his bird rights and whatnot, Cleveland being in the second apron, which is, people need to understand that if you don't have his bird rights, if you don't have the ability to re-sign him, you're only going to be able to offer him a veteran minimum. So I need people to understand that if LeBron if he was willing enough to opt into that final season in LA, of course, he's not likely going to want to sacrifice or sign on the dotted line for another veteran's minimum. Cleveland can't offer him anything more than that, which is why if you trade the salary for him, you'll have that bird rights. He's not going to take the veteran minimum the next year. If he's on the buyout this year, right, he's being paid by LA, I doubt 100% that he would take the money in 2026, 27 on a veterans minimum. He just isn't likely to do that. And that's why it probably makes more sense for you, if you're Cleveland, if you feel like LeBron is going to be suiting up for, I don't know, 2 years at the least, that you may opt to trade for him. But again, you're sacrificing a lot in terms of potential assets to do that. So that's why I keep saying, like, you're likely it is likely to be a 1-year rental. And that is why I would be hesitant to trade anything for Braun. And it would have to be a buyout, because anything that you trade for Braun is going to have to be salary matching, which would be bigger pieces. Just a lot. And I know a lot of people may feel like moving off of Darius and Jarrett is nothing, but I don't think people are, you have to take into consideration that it would literally rob you of a lot of your pivot if it didn't go right. It would make things a lot more difficult to rebuild in the event that LeBron retired after the 2025-26 season. You literally have no great way to pivot after that because you've already traded away two of your bigger assets. And I know a lot of people are already feeling like this could already be Jarrett Allen and Darius Garland's final seasons in Cleveland. But the difference there is that you trade them. You would be able to trade them in that scenario and recoup some of the assets and further build around Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley entirely. So I say all that to say, I think that it is much more likely in any event that LeBron has to be able in any event that LeBron comes back to Cleveland, I just feel like it would probably be on the buyout. I just don't see, and I know there's a lot of smoke being pushed right now, but one thing we have to understand about LeBron is that LeBron is masterful at doing this. Like, he has played these mind games his entire career, right? As he has obviously been more vocal, much more vocal since the first time leaving Cleveland and going to Miami and whatnot. But there are many well-documented things that he has done over the last 15 or so seasons that indicate he is willing to be petty. He's willing to go the extra mile to prove his point or to make people see it his way. I mean, we already know many of those issues, and a lot of them occurred during the second LeBron tenure, with probably the most notable one being the whole fit in, fit out thing with Kevin Love. But to me, I just think it makes a lot more sense if you were to come back to Cleveland, it would have to be on that buyout. I just would not feel comfortable entertaining trading for LeBron. I don't know. That's just where I'm at. Again, I'd love to know what you guys think about that. But the other potential reunion that could occur, and it probably has much more viability than LeBron, at least in my opinion, that is Kevin Love. And again, Kevin Love is far from what he once was. By the way, thanks. Kirk Davis says, how much will we have to give up for K Love? I mean, he would be coming in on the veterans minimum, if I'm not mistaken, because if he is bought out by Utah, he is free to sign where he wishes, where he pleases. So I just think that if you're going to sign him, obviously it's going to be to that 14th roster spot. And I think when it comes to Kevin Love, and that 14th roster spot in general, people are becoming really extremely picky about that spot. And to one extent, I certainly understand it. Why? Because depth has become a very important thing for the Cleveland Cavaliers over the past couple of seasons with the amount of injuries that they have suffered, right? We've seen Darius Garland miss significant portions of seasons and then significant playoff time. We've seen Jarrett Allen have playoff injuries. We've seen Donovan Mitchell and even Evan Mobley. And then this past postseason series against the Indiana Pacers, we have seen DeAndre Hunter and Sam Merrill. There have been I say all that to say there have been a number of injuries, and depth is never a bad thing when you're the Cleveland Cavaliers. So I certainly understand wanting to utilize that spot to bring in somebody who we feel that could genuinely contribute if called upon. So I understand why we want to bring in the likes of an Amir Coffey, who I've talked about ad nauseum. By the way, I would love that, right? No disrespect to Kevin Love, who I would also be okay with in that 14th spot, but Amir Coffey, a guy like that, or Chris Boucher, who I have a video coming out on tomorrow, or whether that be somebody like Bismack Biyombo. There are names out there, and I've seen a couple of different players suggested, whether that be Delano Banton, who has looked like a serviceable third guard at points throughout his career, and I think that could be additional depth here. Trey Lyles. The list goes on and on. There are some names out there. Thomas Bryant is somebody who I actually feel would be very, very good as a good depth piece here, good, or should I say great corner three-point shooter, led the NBA playoffs amongst reserve centers in that category, by the way. Those are all names that I would be okay with in that 14th roster spot. For me, I just think that we have to also understand that a lot of these names that I'm talking about, a lot of these names that others are talking about, they're probably going to want to play. And that's not to say that they wouldn't in Cleveland, but I think that the reason why you're seeing these guys take their time with signing with specific franchises, because you can't tell me that teams aren't interested in Chris Boucher and that is why he is not signed right now, because there are teams out there, probably including the Cavaliers, that are more than interested in bringing in a player like Chris Boucher. But I think they're going to take their time in regard to signing, because they're trying to see which location stakes out to their liking, who can offer me the best role, who can offer me the best opportunity to be in a rotation, who can offer me what I want and what I feel serviceable and fit my needs. So again, while I understand that people would probably prefer to see like a regular rotation caliber player being signed in that 14th spot, the reality is more than likely that it's going to be somebody who is literally just depth. And Kevin Love, at least in that regard, makes sense. We know that he has championship experience. We know that he can rebound. Even at the age that he's at, we know that he can knock down the three ball. As a 14th man, I don't know how much else people expect, because in a perfect world, those guys won't play. Like, you can sign Chris Boucher, you can sign Thomas Bryant, you can sign Amir Coffey. In a perfect world, the idea is that the 14th and 15th man don't play, because it doesn't get that far. The Cavaliers' depth should be able to withstand injuries, but we all know that injuries are a part of sports. It happens. So I certainly understand why you would want to have certain players available. And, all the players that I've just mentioned, there are a couple more that I haven't, but those guys, right, in a perfect world, they don't suit up. And you probably have a couple of camp battles for the back end of rotation spots. But if you're just looking purely healthy, let's take the injury aspects out of it, purely healthy, if you're looking at the entire starting five, and then you're probably your first 4 to 5 off the bench, it's really already set in stone for the most part. Darius, Garland, Donovan Mitchell. I am talking DeAndre Hunter into the starting unit, but I have a feeling that I feel like Kenny is going to bring DeAndre Hunter off the bench. I'm just going to say it. That's not what I want, but I understand why. I understand why that happened, or why it would potentially happen heading into next season. So for me, Darius, Donovan, DeAndre, Evan, Jarrett, that's your starting five. You can sub-max there if you want, and i.e. they, obviously they would switch places if you're, and vice versa, if you're not starting DeAndre. Then your first couple off the bench, you already know that Max is going to play, so let's just pencil him in as a real, like, non-negotiable. We know that Sam Merrill, we know Kenny Atkinson loves him some Sam Merrill. He is very likely to play. Jalen Tyson should be probably a day one rotational piece heading into next season. I just don't think with some of the moves that they've made that you don't include him. So I think he has to. So that's 3 already right there. Lonzo Ball, Craig Porter Jr., those two are probably going to have a battle for whoever is going to be that lead guard off the bench. And what helps those two out right now is that Darius is likely to miss the start of the season. So they'll both probably be in the rotation to some degree. Time will tell on who starts, who takes Darius's place. My guess is that Kenny will probably opt to have Max move over to the 2, start Donovan at the 1, and maybe go the DeAndre route at the 3. I don't know. You could pull something and start Dean Wade. You could theoretically start Sam Merrill at the 2. There are a lot of different options that they could potentially have. You could start Lonzo Ball in that time, or Craig Porter Jr. I don't know. What I'm saying essentially, though, is that all of these guys are likely locks. And then in that 4th and 5th spot, you brought in Larry Nance Jr. You did not bring in Larry Nance Jr. to not play at all. Larry Nance Jr. will play. I just think that he adds so much from a versatility standpoint, being able to play the 4 and the 5, mostly the 5 at this point in his career. He has to see time. And then the biggest question mark of all on that bench, to me, at least in terms of guys who were here last year, is likely Dean Wade, right? Isaac Okoro is gone. He was probably your best perimeter defender, and I even lump him. That includes Evan Mobley. Evan Mobley is a very skilled perimeter defender in his own right, but I think in terms of like pure perimeter defense, Isaac was probably your best isolation defender. So I don't think they're likely to move Dean Wade this offseason. Is still possible. I just don't see that happening. So I think that Dean probably begins this season in the rotation in some form or fashion, but that's a Kenny decision. And so, as you can see, there are a lot of names here, and the Cavaliers have a lot more flexibility and versatility on their bench than what they did this time last year. And this is assuming that everybody is healthy and good to go. But again, that's never a given. So we'll have to see what they end up doing there. But I certainly think that let me tie this all together and get back on topic here. Kevin Love would be a decent option as your 14th signing, as your 14th roster spot. I wouldn't harp on it too much in terms of who you could get there. Yes, there are names that are sexier. There are names that would probably be more serviceable. But again, we have to look at it from all aspects here in terms of what those guys could potentially be looking for. So while I would love to have all of them suit up for Cleveland, one of them is going to get the opportunity. And I think that in terms of who could actually be available, it really boils down to a couple of names. And I think Kevin Love would probably be in that field or in that pool of players should he be bought out. But we'll have to see. Time will tell in regard to this whole will they, won't they thing with Kevin Love and LeBron and whoever else on the reunion tour here. But to be connected to these players years after the title, it's still crazy to me. Like obviously LeBron being in the league, at the age he is, and Kevin Love hanging on for dear life at the age he is in the NBA. It's funny, but it's not without merit. So I certainly could see why they would want to bring in both of those guys. Something else I kind of want to talk about here is what people are most excited to see at Cavs Summer League. As you guys are well aware of by now, we heard from Tyrese Proctor, and holy hell, that dude is Australian as hell. The Cavaliers love their Australians. Matthew Dellavedova, you have Luke Travers, you got Tyrese Proctor now. These guys love their Aussies, don't they? To me, I am very excited to see Tyrese Proctor. Don't get me wrong. He's definitely high up on the list as their second round draft pick who they signed to a multi-year extension. But I would be lying to you if I told you that he was the player that I was most excited to actually see, or the player that I really wanted to view the most. To me, honestly, and it's going to sound crazy, but I am really, really interested to see what Norchad Omier can bring to the table. Why? Why is that? Why do you think that why is it that I am actually pining to see an Exhibit 10 contract? For me, it boils down to that two-way spot. The Cavaliers have one more two-way spot available. That means that it's very likely that one of those Exhibit 10 deals that they handed out, whether that be Norchad Omier, whether that be Chaney Johnson, or Jackson Robinson, one of those guys has a really, really big opportunity on their hands in regard to earning that final two-way spot. And to me, I really want to see what Norchad Omier can bring to the table, because the rebounding with this guy is legit. And I think that has been an issue for Cleveland for a number of years at times. Like it was much better this season with some of the strides that certain players made on the roster, but you can never truly have enough of that, especially in your front court where guys have, missed time and time again, whether that be Jarrett or Evan or Dean or anybody else out there. But I really am interested to see what Norchad Omier can bring to the table. And I'm also interested to see what some of these other younger pieces can as well. But somebody who I continue to be intrigued with, not going to lie, is Craig Porter Jr., right? Craig Porter Jr. is somebody who routinely, at least I've gotten the feeling that he's been a very, very hardworking guy. But as of late, there have been a lot of comments that have come through, and a lot of things that have been speculated on in regard to his work ethic and his standing on the team. And we at one point heard that Cleveland really, really wanted to challenge him. And that was another big reason why they went out and traded for Lonzo and just pushing him and their belief in him. And for me, one of the latest comments that came out in a column by Terry Pluto was that, they they want him to be one of those first into the gym, last one out types. And I took it as some of the comments that were made during the course of that column was that it's not necessarily that Craig Porter Jr. is he's lazy or anything like that. I just think that with everything working against him, whether that be all of the players on the depth chart that are ahead of him, he has to make himself like an invaluable asset. He has to be like damn near unstoppable in terms of his work ethic. He has to stand out in ways that other players don't. And I think that the exact wording of this column said the Cavs are also working with Craig Porter Jr. to raise the level of his intensity and work ethic. Another Cavs source told me that Porter's dedication was okay, but he needs to become one of those first in the gym, last to leave guys if he wants to push for more playing time. Now, if you read in between the lines here, if you actually just kind of think about what is being said, I don't think it's that they think that Craig Porter Jr. doesn't work hard. I think this is mostly just a situation where he could always be working harder. Like, he ain't lazy, but if he really wants to stand out, he has to up his intensity. He has to stand out in ways that nobody else in that position group does. Maybe nobody else on the team does. He has to be the hardest working dude on the roster in order to have his play time increase. Because when you're talking about Darius Garland, when you're talking about Donovan Mitchell, when you're talking about Lonzo Ball and a number of other players that are capable of ball handling and whatnot, Craig Porter Jr. has a lot working against him. So for me, I just think he has to work that much harder. I don't think he's lazy. I don't have concerns over whether or not he's not working in the gym. He's not getting up shots. He's not communicating with his teammates and things like that. I just literally think that they are trying to stoke the competitive fires in him. I think they're trying to push him to be the best that he can be. So I took that very much as they just want him to take things to another level in terms of approaching his workouts and whatnot. So we'll have to see what happens with Craig. I am really, really interested to see, like, is he going to be that third guard for the Cavs this year, or is it going to be Lonzo? Like, I have no idea. Like, with Darius Garland hurt right now, yeah, it makes a lot of sense for both of them to likely play because Lonzo is versatile enough in terms of the positional versatility to give you minutes at both the 1 and the 2, and you may be able to get away with playing him 3, and at least in terms of defensively. But Craig does not have that same level of positional versatility with his particular skill set and size. So when Darius Garland returns, another small guard himself, one of these guys is going to be on the outside looking in. And right now, like, my money is on Lonzo to be that third guard because I just think that potentially, like, at least theoretically, Lonzo Ball offers you quite a bit more than Craig Porter Jr. does. But I think the Cavaliers legitimately do believe in Craig. So I'm really interested to see how this whole thing with Craig Porter Jr. plays out, because I just think it's one of those, either you're ready or you're not. Like, this is like boom or bust kind of thing. It truly is. At least that's the feeling that I get for Craig this year. He's coming off a season in 51 games, 51 appearances in which he averaged 3.7 points, 1.4 assists. He shot 51.4% from the field, which is solid, and 43.8% from three-point distance, which on paper, if you don't look at the volume, sounds really good. But again, it's coming on extremely low volume at just 3.6 at just 2.7 field goal attempts per contest in 2024-25, and less than a triple attempted per game at 0.9 for him. So I think that you have to take the statistics part with a grain of salt with Craig. Like, how much last year did we actually see him develop? And I think the Cavaliers, that's where this whole pushing thing comes from. So I remain interested to see what his actual role is going to pan out to be this year, but I still believe in him. He's not no spring chicken. He's not one of the young prospects anymore, but he certainly hasn't been in the league that long. So time will tell on that one. And that leads me to this. What will Lonzo Ball's role be initially? Again, Lonzo's healthy is the indication that I have gotten. I don't think he's dealing with the injury that he was, and it wasn't a knee injury to close out the year that had him miss the rest of the season for Chicago there. But I get the feeling that he's going to be ready to hit the ground running. The Cavaliers may want to take things easy with him and try and string him along a little bit, take it slow with him, so that they, in an effort to keep him upright and healthy, because Lonzo obviously has an extensive injury history. But for me, I'm kind of conflicted, because part of me wants to say, you know what, fuck it, like, let him go out there and play, give him all the minutes that he can handle. But another part of me, a large part of me, is saying take it extremely slow with Lonzo. Be very careful, because he is a player that could be very impactful come the postseason. So I remain extremely interested, especially after this trade, to see what his role initially is going to be. Again, with Darius, Garland, and Craig Porter Jr., the same rules apply here. Like, Craig and Lonzo are very likely to be playing like at the same time in the early portions of the season if Darius does miss time. But once Darius comes back, who is going to be that lead guard off the bench? And again, my money is on Lonzo, but I'm not going to count out Craig, because you can never account for how well Lonzo's body is going to hold up. And I'm choosing to believe this is going to be one of Lonzo's healthier years. I'm not going to go into the season feeling like, oh, this dude is a walking injury waiting to happen. I just can't bring myself to do that. I don't understand why people like already pencil him to be injured already in the books before it's actually occurred. I'm choosing to believe. It's a decision. I'm choosing to believe, and you can call me delusional if you want to, but I'm choosing to believe that Lonzo is actually going to be relatively healthy this year, that the Cavaliers are going to do everything that they can to replace some of those games where he's injured in, right? Or some of those games where he may be struggling. I'm choosing to believe that they're going to manage him in ways that Chicago and New Orleans and Los Angeles just weren't capable of, because those teams needed him to play. Those teams needed him to play as much as he could. The Cavs, on the other hand, can afford to have him sit some games, or afford to have him play, 12, 15, 18 minutes or so on a night-to-night basis. It doesn't have to be a significant amount of minutes every single game for Lonzo if you're attempting to keep him healthy and upright. That's what I'm saying. I think they're going to manage him in such a way that he will play probably the most games that he has played in quite some time. And if you're looking at like his career high in games played, that, my friends, came back during the 2019-20 season with the New Orleans Pelicans, his first season there after being traded in the deal that brought LA Anthony Davis back. But 63 games remains his career high. He played 55 in the following season, 35 in his first year in Chicago, where he actually looked to be excelling. Like the three-point shot, man, he was out there knocking that thing down on high volume. In his first season in Chicago, prior to that, the knee injuries really fucking things up for him. 42.3% from three-point range was Lonzo Ball on 7.4 attempts from beyond the arc. I just think that the guy, he's at some point, the law of averages has to even out here and give Lonzo a fair shot. Maybe that's just like maybe that's just me being a wishful thinker, but I don't know. I truly do believe that Lonzo is going to have a good year this year in terms of health. I'm hoping and praying for it at the very least. that's where I'm at with Lonzo. In terms of other free agent possibilities, I think I already referenced a lot of these names here, whether that be Thomas Bryant or Amir Coffey, names like that. Bismack Biyombo is still out there in the atmosphere. The names are starting to dwindle down. Kevin Love has been added to that if he gets bought out. Trey Lyles is a potential name that a lot of people are talking about. Chris Boucher. I'll be dropping videos left and right until they make a signing, because they're obviously not going to go into the 2025-26 season without at least one more player signed. They'll likely leave that 15 spot open, whether that be for one of two things. Whether they want to leave it open for a two-way spot to be converted like they've done in a number of years recently, or they'll leave it open for the buyout market. And I guess three things. Potential trade. Something that people need to be aware of if you're not already aware of it. Dean Wade is on an expiring contract, right? He has not signed through the 2026-27 season. He has signed through the 2025-26 season when his money is off the books. So they could look to move Dean in a salary clearing standpoint, or for a player that they feel would better fit their timeline or what they got going on, or overall, or if they're just ready to move on from Dean Wade. So they likely leave that 15th roster spot open. They'll probably sign somebody here very shortly. We'll have to see. Before I get out of here, I did want to come in and address some of the comments, right? And appreciate some of the people for what they've done. Strong Like Bull says, interesting, the Lakers still haven't announced LeBron's return. Decade anniversary and LeBron era jerseys are coming back for the first time. That is an interesting point, right? I think that with LeBron and all the pressure that he's putting on the Lakers organization, I can see why there would be some hesitancy there, because we just aren't privy to everything that's being said behind closed doors between LeBron and the organization, like Rob Lincoln Company. We aren't privy to everything and all the talks that are being had there. Maybe there is smoke, there is fire with this whole buyout thing, but I'm not going to put too much stock into it just yet. I think LeBron, this is just LeBron doing what he has always done and just making a point here, right? Being passive aggressive and being a little bit petty and trying to get his point across. That's what I really think this is about, but time will tell. Kirk Davis says, can we go out and get Mobley, brother? Where is he at? If you're talking about Isaiah Mobley, I think they probably saw all they needed to see in reference to Isaiah Mobley. I just don't think they believe that he is an NBA caliber player. We'll see. We shall see. Elsewhere, SB1125 says, K-Love instead of Double T is low-key a move I want to see. If the options are just Kevin Love and Tristan Thompson, if the options are just those two, yeah, give me Kevin Love all day. No disrespect to Double T, franchise legend and whatnot. J47 says, who do you guys want the Cavs to acquire with their last spot? Me personally, it boils down to Boucher, Coffey, and Bryant. If they get one of those three players, I would be ecstatic. If it's Kevin Love, I'll be okay with that. But for me, yeah, any one of those three, Thomas Bryant, Amir Coffey, or Amir Coffey, or Chris Boucher, I would be extremely happy about that. HJ17 Gaming says, hopefully Lonzo and Tyson stay in the rotation all season. Very underrated rebounders. I agree. Tyson is a valuable resource in terms of rebounding at the position that he plays. And he is positionally versatile enough to give you minutes anywhere between 2, 3, and some, and I emphasize this, some small ball 4, but we'll see on that one. Trey Benny says, Coach Kenny just doesn't trust him. I'm assuming that's in reference to Craig Porter Jr., possibly. That's probably fair at this point in time, at least if that is what you're talking about. Yeah, he hasn't done enough for Kenny to be for Kenny to have trust in him. J47 says they're challenging him to be better and see if he can fit in the rotation. I'm assuming that's also a Craig Porter Jr. comment. Yeah, I think that's what the columns and some of the things that we have heard about him as of late have been about. Yeah, I don't think it's about like disrespect or anything like that. I don't think it's truly about questioning his work ethic. I just think they want him to be like the best that he can be and what he is capable of. We'll see. We'll see. Uriah says, can you talk about what they thought about Emoni? Seems like they gave up on him too quickly. Honestly, I have no like you guys know I'm not connected to the organization. My 2 cents about it though is that they just didn't feel like he developed. And again, Emoni, the Caps do have a two-way spot open, and they still have roster spots open. It's not entirely out of the realm of possibility that Emoni comes back. It's in some form or fashion. So I wouldn't rule it out, but I definitely think that it's probably not likely at all. In regard to Emoni on the court, I just don't think they saw enough out of him from a developmental standpoint to continue on with the notion of keeping him employed on the two-way deal. A lot of his skill set, it revolves around shooting the basketball, and what we have seen from Emoni Bates at both the G League level and the NBA level is that he hasn't necessarily been efficient. He went off to some degree in that final game of the season against Indiana, but I just don't think that was enough for them to be convinced and say, oh, you know what? We're ready and willing to give you another opportunity. Because when you have Luke Travers, who has shown some skills that can actually be viable at the NBA level, or you're talking about Naquan Tomlin, who they appear very, very confident in his ability to be a potential Dean Wade replacement. I just don't think they wanted to enter this offseason with Emoni taking that third spot. Because to me, if I was ranking who had the most, who had the biggest chance to actually be converted, or who had the biggest chance to make to actually make a roster in the NBA, to me, Travers is ahead of Emoni Bates, and I think that Naquan Tomlin is probably the one with the biggest opportunity ahead of him in terms of actually being converted and therefore playing at the NBA level on a regular basis or semi-regular basis. I just don't think Emoni at where he was at right now was likely to be in their future plans. And again, this is not me necessarily saying not necessarily me saying that I don't believe in his long-term potential, because at 21 years of age, there's a lot of time left for him. But I just don't think for a championship contending team, they would have been able to afford him the opportunities that he probably needed to actually develop into the player that they would have needed him to be. So we'll have to see. Thanks again. Kirk says, what if they bring Double T in for a coaching job? I'd be fine with that. Come in, be an assistant coach or have some role on the coaching staff. Just not as a player. I'm done with it. I don't know. That's about it for me, folks. Got to get going. As I always tell you, if you like to reach out to me, you know how you can. It's Cavalier_pod on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and more. If you want to reach out, if you want to be added to the Cavalier Discord chat, you know what's due. Leave a rating, leave a review, send a screenshot, etc. review to itscavalier53@gmail.com, and I will send you said invite. You can do the same over on Patreon too, guys. If you want to support the pod in a small but special way, and consider becoming a member over there for as little as $1 a month. Again, let me know how you feel about all these topics in the comments below, and go Cavs.